So, with Pluto transiting Aquarius and all of the fixed signs, the recent political events that have been kind of occurring, especially on social media and the whatever gossip that is going on, it made me realize, because this is tying into psychology and childhood wounds and trauma and self-abandonment and relationships and all of that. And certain political figures have a Leo rising, just for an example. And so for most of them, unless they have a duplication or an intercepted house somewhere or houses, then Leo risings, that makes them to have their seventh house ruled by Aquarius, and that's the house of relationships, as well as Pluto transiting Aquarius, which represents the people. So this is very fascinating as for all of us, because Aquarius represents the people, the masses. So we're kind of all included in this, in some way, shape, or form, regardless if you are an Aquarius or have, any major placements in there. If it's transiting your personal houses 1, 4, 7, and 10, you may feel this even more because it's really affecting you. That's just why I'm pointing out this Leo rising opposition Aquarius. So what's going on in the public right now can be triggering for a lot of people who are in relationships that they don't feel loved, valued. They might feel abandoned, even though that might not be the intention. There can, and it's just going to be this public mirror, an example of relationship dynamics that may be affecting you, teaching you things that you didn't see before, because you're seeing it from an outside example, not only on TV, media, whatever social platform that you're watching, whatever news that you're watching, and putting into your brain, because, there's so many platforms that we can be absorbing and reinforcing our own beliefs, whether they are true, not true, partially false, or completely made up. If you can't recognize AI things, and we can all be fooled by that. So I just found that fascinating, and this is going to be a big psychological, unraveling for a lot of people in whatever house Aquarius is for you. But, if it's in opposition of yourself, if you have a Leo. So yeah, continued from part 1. So it's going to affect all of us. Wherever Aquarius is in your chart, as well as all the squares, oppositions, that's the area in life that, it's going to be transforming, and it's going to be related to people, humanitarian things, or people on the internet, because Aquarius is kind of like the internet, and how we connect in a technological way, and we're learning and exchanging ideas and information and truth and untruth and lies and manipulation and all kinds of stuff. Because Pluto is like very deep and psychological, and it gets beneath the surface. It's things that are, hidden, they're secretive, they're kind of painfully true that we don't want to see, and we tend to just cover it up, and we turn a blind eye to, because it's just so uncomfortable, or we just plainly do not see it. We don't see this within ourselves as an individual or human race, that we are doing, or we are self-sabotaging, or we are contributing to a problem that, we are maybe projecting that, they should be like this, or they should be like that, or you should be, blaming other people when you're actually doing the same thing, but maybe it's the same thing but in a different way, or you do that but in a different category of life, and you self-sabotage too, and you contribute that to the collective, but you don't want to see it, and so people tend to project all the time, or people need to speak up, and they try to keep the peace, they hold back, they don't want to start anything, they just want a peaceful life, but at the same time, that is self-sabotaging, because when you just keep holding back and not saying anything and keeping quiet and want to stay safe, you don't want to be called out, you don't want to be unalived or something, and you don't say anything, now time goes on and on and on and on and on into, where now you have to face what you didn't want to, what you tried to avoid because you didn't even say anything. Well, the whole group of people who didn't speak up and say anything or really take action, now you're faced with the crap that you didn't want to. It was just delayed, because people needed to hear your wisdom, your insight, your, counter argument or whatever it is. Because then we're afraid that we're going to be attacked. We're going to be afraid. We're not going to be heard. We're not going to be seen, whatever. It's like, what? I should have just kept my mouth shut and just, done my own. So this is part 3. So Pluto in Aquarius, this next 20 so years, probably 19 or whatever. But, I am, also trying to educate kind of, I feel really connected to my Capricorn people because I am a Capricorn and I have Capricorn stellium in my 4th house of home and family. I have a really upside down chart, and you Pluto and Capricorn generation kids, which the older ones of you are probably around the age of 17, and the youngest ones of you are age 1 as I am recording this in November 1st, 2025. You are the ones who are going to have to rebuild all the crap that is being destroyed right now. And Capricorn energy holds back, it learns, it absorbs, it's kind of delayed, it's trying to be very cautious and, thinking long term, not short term, and, trying to understand everything and how everything works, and if you guys can work as a group, as you get older, as you unlearn the traumas that your parents gave to you, or if they coddled you too much, or you feel like, oh my god, now I have to work so hard, because maybe some of you got it a little too easy because your parents kind of gave you too much or was a little too nice to you, so now things feel harder, but your great grandparents or whatever is like, well, that's kind of normal, like there's this generation gap thing or whatever. But you are the group that gets to rebuild and restructure and reorganize everything, and as well as the Pluto and Sagittarius group, which you'd be age 17, and I think the oldest ones of you are around age 28, 29-ish. You guys get to restructure education, how we learn, people who are foreign and very different from us, who have different cultures and different belief systems, how we can kind of branch together, and we're not actually that different, which we always knew that, but at the same time, the cultural differences and the generation gaps, and how each generation or group or cultural group or whatever group you want to identify with wants to be heard and wants to be seen and valued and welcomed in, starts to shout really loud because they don't feel like so part 4, Pluto and Sagittarius group, you guys get to restructure how we learn, because the system right now, it's so outdated, it's old, it's not working, it's obviously not helping anyone be self-sufficient, and it's kind of dismantling, so what is that time going to, it's not efficient anymore. And then we have new technology, there's new better ways of learning, people learn in different ways as well, so you guys get to redo that. It's like my generation, the Pluto and Scorpio generation, we expose all the deep psychology BS, that was very hurtful and painful, because Scorpio is like a very deep emotional sign, and we will call out the BS, and we're generations that apparently, if you believe in reincarnation and in past lifetimes, we're the generation who had past lifetimes through plagues and wars and all this crazy crap, that is no fun. And so we're here to stabilize, energy, because like not as big of a deal to us, even though it is a big deal to us because it's not fun. But, we get to expose a lot of truths that are hidden or buried, or conspiracy theories or whatever.